Yeah, I mean, I think we had a couple good looks we did not knock down. I want to go back and see. We tried to get the ball out of Brunson's hands there late in that possession when Bridges made that corner three, and just where the help came from because we tried to get it out of his hands and then he kind of drove down and we kind of pulled all the way in and we kind of left the corner open. And we probably got to stay home. I thought, on some of the side of the bounds plays, I thought, the first part of it was to try to get Patrick a quick three, and then, he flipped it to Josh, which was the ending of the play, and I thought Josh made a good drive down, Hill. I thought coming out of the timeouts, he did a good job doing what we asked him to do. Again, I thought we had, like Matas had a couple shots. I thought we got a little bit stagnant, but we ended up generating something good. And obviously they made the plays down the stretch. Give them credit; they were the ones that made the plays.
Josh has seemed just a little bit kind of out of sorts as he's come back. Do you feel like that is just kind of the minutes, or what do you feel like maybe he needs to get his rhythm?
I don't want to necessarily speak for him. I think this is just my gut. I think he's frustrated. Not with anybody or anything. I think it's more just he's a competitive guy and he wants to be out there. And I think when he's getting in the flow and getting in the rhythm and in the game, and he's got to come out. It's hard, and his rotations have got, unfortunately, these huge gaps in them because we're trying to keep at least when I say experienced guys that have been here that can help some of these new guys, right? So you get caught in the situation where he starts and a lot of times he's not coming all the way back into the end of, the start of the second quarter. Then he's sitting the whole thing. He's sitting all through halftime. It's hard, and he's going to have to find his way through this. Like it's the thing. I think maybe Joe asked me before, just about uh, the stuff with some of these guys, injuries and things like that. That's what you worry about is these reoccurrence things, right? So, like, I hope Sticks is not out too long, but I don't know. And certainly, I want to do what medical's asking me to do. They've asked me to try to keep those guys inside of 24 minutes. I'm trying to do the best job I can. I went a little bit over last night. But I know Josh wants to be out there, and so does Trey. But they also understand what we're doing here. But I would imagine it's probably hard for him to find a rhythm with the way his rotations have been, quite honestly.
Do you feel like also, I was just going to say, with kind of, especially with Kobe not being here anymore, he and Josh had obviously never really been able to fully get into that rhythm together. But
Right.
do you feel like Josh is just kind of like struggling to find what that definition of himself is supposed to look like without Kobe, without Io, just without some of that guard group?
Um, I think with Josh is he's very, very cerebral. He's very smart. He's a very instinctive player. I always think when you're a guy that passes the ball the way he does, takes time to get to know people, and get the right, quite honestly, spacing, on the floor where he can kind of get downhill and create and generate things for others. And I think that's been, quite honestly, a struggle for us from the beginning. Is we're getting better. Like, I don't want to say we're not, but we're getting better. But the spacing part's got to be better, right? For all those guys to be able to attack and get downhill and play in the paint, and that's obviously his strength, and you want to be able to help him do that. But I do think that Josh is probably, like a lot of our guys, getting to know all these guys, so he's got to work on a pairing with Nick, at the five spot. Nick's different. Vooch was a pocket player, right? Nick's more of a roll or lob threat, even when Yabu is at the five spot. Those are different combinations of screening actions. He's used to being in actions with Okoro, but all these things are going to take a little bit of time for him to get acclimated and familiar with these guys. And then when you're having a rotation like he's having, sometimes it's hard to do that.
Wanted to go back to the end of the game. Yeah, I know there's a lot of circumstances here. You haven't actually been in a lot of end of games lately.
Yep.
And also there's guys out, new guys. You're not actually able to run a system of play, practices, but pretty much shot only almost threes, for the last 4 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that what it's okay to do since if they're good looks, or would you rather, try to get to the basket, maybe get a foul, do some other stuff that keeps the defense moving?
Well, I thought Josh did a good play on that side of the bounce play where he got downhill and he got fouled with that one, right? But there was a couple of times we got downhill and we got swallowed up, quite honestly, And I think if you look at us, our shooting really for the entire year, not since the trades, we have not been a great finishing team at the rim. You know, we're really at the bottom of the league. And you know, to your point earlier, you know, with the lack of size, when we get in there to try to force things up over that size is probably not the best thing. And I do think that, you know, some of our turnovers have come from guys leaving their feet, trying to attack the basket, getting there, realizing they can't get a shot off, and then trying to spray it, and the ball gets deflected or stolen. I thought Modest's shots coming down the stretch were good. They were wide open. You're going to have to live with those. But there was a couple of possessions there. I'm not saying the last minute, but probably the last 3 or 4 minutes. We got downhill, and it didn't end good. You know, it didn't end well. So I do agree we took threes, but we got to make decisions in the lane, you know, because I think if we drive the ball in there and force it up there, we just don't finish well enough, you know, because of some of the size. So what we got to try to do is generate open shots, and then we're going to have to live with those shots. And listen, I mean, the first few years, you know, I was here. You know, we always struggled with the math equation, right? Teams are taking 45, 53s, and, you know, we're taking 28. You know, how can you win? So they're a team that takes threes and they shoot a high level. And I'm not saying you just want to come down and shoot threes because that's what they do. But when you get those shots, they're probably better shots for us than trying to really throw shots up over sides at the basket for us.
Also, you were asked yesterday a lot about Dillingham, and I think Dillingham
Yep.
did quite a bit.
Yep.
Today, but he dribbles a lot. Is that, you know, is that just who he is, or is that, you know, is somebody who plays that way and is sort of becoming an NBA player by playing that way? Could he work into a system where there's not as much of that, or that's just who he is?
I don't want to say it's who he is because he's a young player, but you know that's gonna like. I'm not saying that I was even remotely close to any of these guys' levels of player, but being a point guard, I'm probably a little bit more difficult on those guys, you know, just because of being in that position. You know, he is going to have to learn. You know, I always say this: what gets you here doesn't keep you here, and what gets you here doesn't necessarily take you to a next step. You know, as the talent gap shrinks, you have to make adjustments and changes. And I think for him, he's so explosive and so fast with the ball that probably for most of his career, nobody could keep him in front. He probably got to the rim anytime he wanted to, and he could use his athleticism and his jumping ability to go finish. And now all of a sudden, that's not, he can't do that all the time right now. But what he can do at an elite level is get to the lane. But he's got to make decisions when he gets there. Even like last night, he got some shots blocked at the rim where if he just takes one more dribble, it's a corner three. One more dribble, it's an open shot. And I've got to help him through that. Julie and I were talking about this yesterday. You know, it's this balance where you don't want to take away a guy's aggressiveness by just like yanking him. But the things that upset me, and I told him this tonight, like there was a loose ball in front of him that was a key play that he needs to come up with that he didn't come up with. You know, there was a play in transition as a point guard. He's throwing the ball back behind him on the break. You can't do that. These are things I think he's going to have to learn. And like he's really gifted and talented. He's got great speed. He hasn't gotten a chance to play a lot in Minnesota. I do agree he puts it down too much. He's got to be able to make quick, explosive, decisive decisions. And you know, probably most of his career he puts it in his hands, and eventually he's going to get by him, and eventually he's going to get to the rim. But I do agree this is going to be the evolution for him as a player, because with his size, there's certain things he can't do at the basket. But what he can do by getting there is make everyone else around him better, and that's what we got to try to work with him without taking away the aggressiveness.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Billy.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, but I understand it from a medical perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's just different. It's hard playing 5-minute stints, 4-minute stints. So it is hard to get the rhythm, but you know, it's no excuse. Obviously, I got to be a lot better. We've got to be better. We've got to find ways to start winning games because what we're dishing up right now is nowhere near good enough.
What are you trying to do in those minutes where you're sitting out? I mean, because there's pretty long stretches.
Yeah,
Do you ride a bike or anything? Or
I'm trying to stay warm, do different things. You know, timeouts and end of the first, end of the second, whatever, you know, end of the quarter it is. Stay warm, but you know, I got a hot pack on my hamstring the whole time. But yeah, as I said, I mean, I get it. As frustrating as it is as players, I get it from a medical standpoint. But yeah, it's different, and it's been something I've had to adjust to.
what do you guys do as a team to kind of make sure you guys get through this stretch with all the losses piling up? How do you stay connected and kind of on point with all these new faces?
I mean, exactly that. I think staying together is very important, especially, you know, it's easy to do it when you're winning and everything's going well, but when things aren't going well, like they're not right now. That's kind of when you see the real character of a group. And I think, we got to come together as players and figure out how to get out of this kind of hole. And no one's going to save us. I think we can only keep using the excuse that it's a new team put together for so long. I think we're beyond that point now. We've had enough time together to get everyone familiar with the offense, the defense, what we do, and how we want to play. So, we're way past that point now. And, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 in a row, whatever we've lost. We're not that bad of a team where we should be losing that many in a row. And we've got to find ways to be way more competitive. And I guess it starts with that first unit. We've got to set the tone, and second year come in and kind of keep that flow effect going. So we got to find ways 1 through 15 to get this thing on the right track, because the season it goes quickly, and there's 25 games left, and we're kind of sliding down the standings right now. And everyone in this locker room wants to win games, and it's up to us. No one's saving us. No one's going to come and do it for us. It's up to us players, and coaches can only prepare us so much. So we got to go out there and execute and do our job a lot better than we are right now.
Josh, how tough individually has it been for you to be on a team that you guys were kicking around the 500 mark, for a little bit, and then going to the trade deadline and see that mass exodus? How do you make sure that you personally don't let go of the rope and don't get too frustrated with what's been going on, the changes, and then obviously the sliding stand as you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's part of the business, and those decisions that are made, none of us players have control over. And our job is to go out and perform and win games every night. That's what we get paid to do, and irrespective of who's on the court with us. And we've got to do that. And obviously it's different. I mean, as I said earlier, we're not going to keep using the excuse that it's a new team for as long as we can. We're past that point now, and it is frustrating because you build so much continuity with the team that you have, and then it just gets kind of torn apart, within a couple of days. And we've got 30 games left to kind of get this new team together. And as I said, we've had so much time now for everyone to get familiar with what we do, how we play. And, as I said, I mean, I guess a few of these 4 or 5 games this losing stretch was before the deadline, but 4 in a row, and none of the games after the deadline have been even close, I don't think. And tonight was probably the closest. But, we got to find ways to get out of the hole and figure it out as a group. And as I said, nobody's feeling sorry for us. There's no asterisk on the stat sheet that says it's a new team together. It's on us as players to figure this out, and we got to do it.
Josh, with all of that change, do you feel like you understand kind of like your identity, your role with this new group, or is that something that you're kind of having to figure out, just kind of like what Josh looks like with this team?
I don't think it changed too much. I think probably from a leadership standpoint, if anything, just being able to integrate these new guys into the team and the system and what we do and how we operate as a unit. But no, I don't think my role or anything like that has changed. I think the minutes obviously just with this restriction, but outside of that, I don't think anything's changed.
Are you feeling anything with the hamstring? Are you good?
No, I feel good. I mean, as I said, I get it from a medical standpoint, but no, I don't feel anything.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Josh.